Good evening, welcome to ITV News Anglia in the west of the region.
A dad from Northampton says he's been let down by the government after a hospital gave him blood contaminated with hepatitis C.
Matthew Harris, who's a haemophiliac and needs the clotting agent factor 8, contracted the disease at birth.
He was one of thousands of patients who were either infected with hepatitis or HIV in the 70s and 80s. I went along to find out more. At Brixworth near Northampton, 43-year-old Matthew Harris has a nice home and a loving family. To outsiders, it might look perfect. But since birth, Matthew, who has haemophilia, has had to live with hepatitis C because he was given contaminated blood in hospital.
It boils down to the clotting factor which haemophiliacs have to take due to accidents. That's where the hepatitis came from the contaminated blood that wasn't checked properly.
Around 32,000 people who needed the blood clotting agent factor 8 contracted hepatitis C, and a further 1,500 were infected with HIV when the British government purchased contaminated supplies from the United States in the 70s and 80s.
The majority, as I understand, were from America: prisons, prostitutes, drug dealers, anybody that would sell their blood, really. That's where the majority of it came from.
Recently, a report was published on the effects of the scandal in Scotland, but it stopped short of blaming specific people or bodies. It did, though, lead to an apology by Prime Minister David Cameron on behalf of the government. But Matthew says it wasn't enough.
Certainly a bit more of an apology than David Cameron provided last week. But I also think that we need support, not only financial support, but mental and physical support, and access to the right drugs for the right people.
Meanwhile, the Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt has issued a statement on the blood contamination, saying the challenge for any future government will be to identify the most appropriate way of targeting financial assistance, while ensuring any system can be responsive to medical advances and is sustainable for government in financial terms. For Matthew, though, it's never been about money. He wants the government to give greater recognition to the medical failings which condemned him to a life fearing the effects of a potentially fatal disease, and to provide more support for all those who trusted the health service and were let down.
When you look at your family and see what you could lose through the negligence of somebody else, it really hits home.